on behalf of the Corinthian Sailing Association, I welcome all of you to our third in the series of seminars that we are doing this year that are focused on basic sailing stuff. I know a lot of you are racers, and we're going to try and address racing issues. We're going to address the racing issues separately. But for right now, the focus of what we're trying to do is to get new people that aren't involved with our organization into it, especially people that don't have a whole lot of sailing experience, don't have much racing experience. We want to get people out doing things on boats, and then if those new folks are interested in racing, they can sail with some of us on our boats, or they can get started in that. But that's really not the focus of what we're doing with this. Our first seminar, if you missed it, was about basic sailing, and our second one was on boat handling and docking. We're going to post the videos from those sessions on YouTube, but we're working out the details on finalizing that, and we'll let everybody know when they get posted. So I want to thank again Court Richardson, Commodore Pontchartrain Yacht Club, and Pontchartrain Yacht Club for hosting this for us. It's a big help for us in trying to get this accomplished. So we're planning for April 2nd and April 3rd weekend to have a cruise over from Mandeville or from wherever you want to come from over to Madisonville. And so part of that cruise is going to be a jambalaya dinner that's going to be sponsored in part by Pelican Yacht Club, who we've been working closely with, and then it'll be a sail back here on Sunday. So one of the, if you're here in the room, Adele is taking names of people who are interested, because we need to get a head count of the number of boats that are available and the number of people who are going to be participating so that we can make sure that there's enough food for everybody. If you're watching by Zoom, just send me a message or a comment if you're interested in sailing. We've got some of those already, but we're just trying to get a good count of the number of boats that we're going to have. So to make sure that we work out the details of what we plan to do next weekend, tonight's seminar is going to be about the planning of this cruise and what we're going to do on the cruise. And let me just say, if you're watching by Zoom and you haven't muted your microphone, please do so. Send us a text or something if on Zoom if you have any questions or comments, but just to keep the background noise down, please mute it. So tonight, the presenter for this session is going to be Albert Bache. Albert is somebody I have known for 20 some odd years. I first met Albert when he was the coach of my daughter's softball team. And I've known Albert and his wife Sandy since then. We got out of touch as our daughters grew up and got out of playing softball, but then got back in touch when I got a boat and found out that my neighbor basically was Albert Bache on his Catalina 30.
The one that I sang.
It was Intrepid at that time, and he has a newer version, Risky Business. And Albert has been Albert actually got me involved in Corinthians by me sailing with him on his boat in races and seeing how much fun it was to be out on the water. So I raced with him a bunch, then started racing on my own boat a bit. But Albert and I have sailed off and on each other's boats. And just last November, in connection with the cruising side of things, we cruised on my boat with Albert on board and another friend of ours, and with Wind Nuts with Al Johnson and Gigi down the Gulf Coast to
the islands.
To the islands.
Yeah, we went to the islands, man.
And so we came back. We had a good time. We were coordinating between the two boats and learned a lot of things about doing things with more boats. And so the cruising stuff that we are doing this year is going to start off in small things, but we hope as time progresses that we'll have more boats who are interested in doing something like that at some point during the year. So Albert, I turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Skip.
You're welcome.
So, one of the things that Skipper did mention is that we've raced a lot, but he didn't say whether or not we won a lot. Risky Business isn't really known for winning races, but it does hang in there, and it gets lucky sometimes because a lot of people bail out. That's a separate subject. So tonight, we're going to be focused on cruise planning. We really tried to keep it as general topics for us with the intention that we get to use the Madisonville cruise as a very specific example of how to plan for something. So we did put on there our two different organizations with the yacht clubs, Pontchartrain Yacht Club. I assume everybody knows how to get to that website, and also the Corinthian Yacht Club. So I do have an 87 Catalina 30 that I've had for about 10 years. A lot of the people in this room grew up sailing. I grew up fishing. So I did a lot of saltwater fishing with my dad, so I was real familiar with being on boats, but not sailing. So when I decided to buy a boat, it was based on 4th of July celebration. I was just watching people out there, helping people get off their boats, and I told my wife, Sandy, you know, I think I want to get a sailboat. And that was pretty much it. Found a boat in Biloxi. I hired a young man who was just out of college that delivered boats. He helped my son and I sail her back home. That was my 2-day sailing instructions, where I learned how to read charts, how to navigate, how to turn lights on, how to anchor, and how to dodge whatever I had to, shrimp boats or whatever. So that was pretty much my introduction. I thought that's what everybody would be doing. You just cruise, you go places. I've been amazed at how many boats never move out of our slips. It's amazing to see how many boats just sit there and don't move. So that's our emphasis now. So if anybody's ever sailed close to me, you will know that I never throw a good cigar away. And you can usually smell, if you're coming up behind me and getting ready to pass me, you'll know that it's my boat. If it's not by Risky Business on the back, it'll be by the smell. Some of the people that have sailed with me, I believe you mentioned there the last time our Commodore for the Corinthians said, Albert, you were racing yesterday. I said, well, yeah, how'd you know? I didn't see you out there. He said, I could smell you. So that's my claim to fame. That, and I'm not afraid to try anything. That's one of the things I take a lot of pride in saying, is that if I need to figure out how to fix something, I've got people like Shimei that will at least steer me in the right direction. And I know where to go for good sales and all that. So what I want to do is just quickly go over what our objectives are. We are going to be using the Madisonville cruise. So what we want to make sure that we do is just go over some basic gear that all of us should be aware of that we need to be carrying on our boat. That's going to include safety gear as well as personal gear. You know, a lot of times when we start talking about personal gear, we are encouraging people to show up and go sailing with us. Well, there's some basics that we want to make sure that we explain to you that you should consider. We're going to talk about route planning. In this case, we've got a very specific route that we'll be working through, but we want to make sure that we incorporate some basic knowledge and how to get around out there. Reading charts is kind of an important thing if you're going to venture outside of the lake or even in the lake. You should know where you're going and know how to read a compass, those kind of things. We're going to talk about range markers and bridge communication. We're going to be talking about bridge communications. And we're going to also find out that causeway doesn't necessarily follow the rules of other bridges for communication. Range markers, when you're going into channels, there's multiple opportunities for you to be led astray and end up in shoals that you'd really rather not find out. Going to Madisonville, we'll be able to talk about one of those. Docking and anchoring. We're not going to talk a lot about proper tie-ups because we covered that quite a bit at the last one, but we're going to enhance it a bit as we go into Madisonville. And then finally, we're going to talk about cooking on board versus restaurants, going on shore or staying on board. And we've got another presentation that will be coming up the following month here. And then what we'll do is we'll summarize the Madisonville trip, and then we'll open it up for questions. So if you go online and you look at the U.S. Coast Guard, there is a real good single trip planner that pops up, and it'll list things like name of your boat, destination, just some real good basic information about your boat. It'll also come up with this checklist. So with this checklist, there's several things that every boat should have on it. This whole list is something that all of us should be aware of. So, and I'm assuming that everybody can read it, because personally I can't see this well enough. I'm not going to read all of it, but there's a few things that we should always be aware of. So definitely this is something you should print out. It's a great checklist. Go through it. Things like our safety gear, our primary safety gear for flares. I went and looked at some of the flares that I have on board, and I'll probably still bring them with me, but I've got some 08s in there. So I'm sure that they're perfectly fine, and if the Coast Guard came on board, they'd be fine with that being the only ones, right? No. So I do need to buy a set. That's not the only set I have in there, but it's okay to keep those, because if you ever really have to start using flares, you'll be glad to have the extras. So it's not something we need to throw away. Making sure you got life vest for everybody on board. We're going to be talking about life vests in just a bit, because that's something that we all have to make sure that they fit. I keep a generic pack in my boat. They're nicely zippered away for safe use. When I get somebody on board, I do make sure that they know where it is. And I do ask, especially if somebody that I haven't sailed before, would you like to have a life jacket? Are you comfortable sitting in my boat without one? If there's any hesitation, then I don't hesitate in telling them or handing them one. I actually prefer they bring their own, which is going to be one of the topics we'll be talking about. So throwable cushion is another hot topic. There's multiple types on that as well. You do have some that have a throw line that is, you keep that attached and you throw the ring out, or you just have a ring. If somebody hits the water, the best thing you can do is start throwing anything that floats in the water. Just start tossing. The first person who sees the person go overboard becomes the spotter. And that person, their only job is to keep pointing at that person. They're not to look away from that person that's in the water. And they just keep pointing. And I'm not trying to become the U.S. Coast Guard. That's not what this is about. That would be an excellent topic for us to have a Coast Guard rep and just do a separate discussion. But that spotter just keeps pointing at that person, and they just keep facing that person. They keep moving around to make sure they're always looking right at it. Everybody else is scurrying around on the boat, dropping sails, making loops, turning the engine on if necessary. Keep that in mind too. That prop is not a pretty place to put somebody. So if you have a rope attached to your buoy, all you're trying to do is make a large loop around them and try and get them to where they can grab hold of that line. And as you start pulling further away from them, they will get to that jacket. Everything slows down, but that spotter never moves. They've got to keep their eye on that individual. So I would say, please make sure you go to the website, print this out, use it as a reference. Has anybody ever had to use a first aid kit on board? Yeah, I mean, you know, you need to make sure that you've got adequate supplies in it. And the Coast Guard's going to say first aid kit. You need to really consider what you're putting in there. And by the way, Band-Aids don't stick when they're 20 years old. Ask me how I know. Okay. So I hit it twice, and that's okay. So in basic gear, if you're going on somebody else's boat, One of the best things I can recommend is just bring your own life jacket, one that fits you. Because, you know, while I am the captain of my vessel, I can tell you where they are, and if it's a child, I get real nervous because I don't allow children on my boat unless they come with a life jacket, period. Mine are going to be too big. If somebody large gets on my boat, my life jacket might be able to be adjusted enough. So if you're volunteering to jump on somebody's boat, that's a great thing to just bring it along. Rain gear. Yes, I have 2 jackets on board. Sure would be nice if everybody had their own, especially if we're going to be out for a bit. If it's just these little 1 or 2 hour races, you'll get wet. Don't worry about it. Change of clothes. Again, part of what we're talking about here is if we're taking short cruises. If we're doing an overnighter, you'll want to bring change of clothes. One of my favorites, no mark shoes. A lot of shoes will leave marks on boats. And they come out, but they take some scrubbing. So again, be respectful of the people's boats that you're getting on board. Okay. So the other thing here's another one of my pet peeves. Snacks and drinks. A lot of our races, so again, this applies to anytime you're getting on somebody's boat. A lot of our races start at noon. We gather up at 10:30. We get on board. We get all the sails prepped. We get out there and we start sailing at noon. And that's usually when people are eating. Now, I tend to always bring food, especially since most of the people that come on my boat are family, so I'm usually feeding them anyway. But if you are going on somebody else's boat, pack a snack, get a little ice chest, bring your favorite liquid refreshments. Oh, I don't like that kind of beer. Isn't something any sailor would ever say to another. I'll be glad to drink whatever you have on board. So, you know, but it is a nice courtesy to make sure that you do that. Sunscreen. Yes, I have some. Is it the right strength for you? Bring your own sunscreen. Cover yourself the way you intend. By the way, I've got my clicking working now. If you are spending the night on a boat, this can be real simple. Bring a sleeping bag and a pillow, or bring a sheet, depending on the weather, or do whatever you'd like. But just consider that. Don't expect, it's not a bed and breakfast where we supply everything. We'll make you as comfortable as possible. So route planning. I like using an app called Navtronics. It's a real simple app that we found real useful. Skipper and I have used this several cruises now. That particular program, I was able to just set 2 wave marks. Let's see, I need to give you one more click. So I was able to start with the red dot at our port. Thank you. And then I put a mark into the harbor in Madisonville. Just picked 2 points of start and finish. And the program went ahead and it routed me because I've given the height of my mast, the depth. So it's a real simple program. I would not rely solely on it, ever. I actually break out charts out of my bag on occasions, especially if I'm on the outside, because I like actually marking my charts as I'm working through it. I passed this particular buoy marker, and I'll put what time, what date, just so I know where I'm at in the event of a storm, fog, engine dies at Cat Island, who knows. So route planning is something that we'll use, depending on your boat, we'll use 4.5 knots an hour for general planning. What we find is that that's a hit and miss because as we all know, if you go into the wind, there's some boats are at 90 degrees, right? So, well, mine's more like 100 degrees that I can't sail in. So it's a real wide area, so 4.5 feels like a good cruising speed to average out. And for our races and for general purposes in the lake, we monitor 68. If you're for general purpose emergency listening, you'd stay on 16. So channel 16 is our emergency broadcast. Unfortunately, 16 is also used improperly by a lot of people that are on commercial boats or on fishing boats. That is not the channel we should be communicating on. That's for listening. We use 68 in the lake because we want to communicate. So most of the races are monitoring that. Okay. So distress calls and monitoring on 16. Most of the bridges, and I can say that nationwide, most of the bridges monitor 13. However, Causeway does not listen to 13, they listen to 16. And you hail them across the emergency channel when you're making your final approach.
Or call their phone.
Yes. So part of what the bridge, that's our biggest challenge when we're going to, there's actually two. One of the main challenges there that we have to deal with in going to Madisonville is that bridge. 42-foot clearance. I'm at 45 and they tell me you could probably pass on low tide with no sea movement. No, you're going to open the bridge for us. Thank you very much. So there's a proper way to hail the bridge. Causeway requires you to call 3 hours in advance. They have a phone number. I think I have it on here.
Yep, it's up there.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. So
Thank you.
3-hour notice, there's the phone number, and they do listen to channel 16. So the best thing to do, and what we plan to do for this particular voyage, we have called the Causeway and discussed, hey, we have a group of boats that are coming through. We're going to be going to Madisonville. We're going to be coming in around noon. Would you like for us to, how do you want us to handle that? And the answer is, everybody who's going through needs to call and schedule it. Okay? That doesn't mean that we can't still go as a group, and we'll tell you what our plans are. We're going to meet at the M1 marker at 10 in the morning. And we're going to sail to the bridge. We're not expecting everybody to meet at M1 or follow us at exactly the same time, because it's not a race, but we all know that if there's two boats going in the same direction, it just became a race. So it's not, people aren't going to get there at the same time. It will be up to the bridge tender, knowing that he has a list of boats that are coming and that are hailing, that have hailed him 3 hours in advance. He's got a list now of what boats are coming through. And he's going to be able to check you off as you go through. When you know that you're a half hour out, you can call him or hail him on 16 to just say, I'm a half hour out from the bridge, requesting a pass. And then that, yes sir.
So assuming that we're leaving at 10 and we're arriving at the bridge at 12, everybody needs a call by 9.
Very good point. Yeah, so if that's your plan, I plan to call at 9 on the phone to let them know I plan to be there about noon. So they've got to do planning, and they do have to keep a record of all boats that are planning to pass, have passed, cleared. So, any questions or additions to that? That's kind of a big point.
So are they gonna give you the time, or are you gonna give them your time?
I'm gonna tell them, I'm requesting a pass for noon. And they're gonna say, you can request all you want, we're gonna open at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
We're gonna wait till, I got 10 boats coming up, we're gonna wait for all of them. That's not what they've intended. When the Wooden Boat Festival's going on, there's a lot of boats that have to pass. They're notified, everybody's coming from the South Shore, North Shore, from Slidell. And, you know, they've just got to deal with that. But they're given notice, they're arriving, they give a prep, hey, I'm 30 minutes out. He'll say, let me know when you're 10 minutes out or 5 minutes out. Let me know when you're doing circles out by me. Yes, sir, Brian.
Albert, is that the number for the bridge tender, or is that the general causeway number?
That is the bridge tenant. He's monitoring 16, he does not monitor 13. So he's monitoring for emergencies and he's monitoring for boat traffic coming through his bridge.
Yeah, actually, I think that that's the general causeway number.
Did I thought I had changed that one?
Yeah, that is the correct one.
Yeah, so there are two different phone numbers, okay? This particular number, I had the general number initially. This is the bridge tenant. So when you call that one, it's heads up to them.
So we call, let's say, we're gonna leave at, 10, get there at 12, we call them at 9, but when we get close, do we mail them on channel 16, or do we call them?
Or you can call them on the phone, either way.
Okay.
You know, when we were coming from Slidell, we found out that they blocked us.
Yeah.
You know, they had all kind of construction going on, coming back, and they weren't telling us anything. So we had two boats trying to pass through. We had David, one of the other people on Gigi and Al's boat. He started calling and said, no, we're blocked, we're down indefinitely, can't pass. And then all of a sudden the bridge opened and they let us shoot through. So we just communicate the best we can, but don't try and pass under this bridge with most of the boats that we have for cruising. Any other questions?
Hey, this is Louise on Zoom, and I think we have a few boats that are coming from the South Shore, and so could we make a plan to coordinate with you when y'all are leaving, in advance of the day?
Yeah, so my recommendation, knowing that it's very difficult to predict times and gather everybody at the bridge, we're leaving at 10 o'clock. We have about 2 hours to get to the 8-mile marker. In your case, you're going 16 miles. So you need to plan for 4 hours. If you're trying to get there for noon, then you need to be leaving by 8 o'clock, and you can call them en route. Does that help to clarify?
That does, thank you.
So, yes.
So when you said that was the 8-mile marker, that's from the South Shore, that 8? Or 8 miles from here?
I stand corrected because the markers are coming north.
Right.
So it's actually the 16-mile marker, which is 8 miles from the North Shore. It's 16 miles from the South Shore. Thank you for the clarification. I'm thinking distance from here, and that's not the way the markers are set up on the causeway.
Yeah, so it depends on wind too.
So just in case anybody misunderstood or didn't hear the question was, I've been talking about 8-mile marker. It's not a marker. There's 2 big humps out there on the causeway. The first one from the South Shore is the 8-mile marker. The second one is at 16 miles, and that's the drawbridge. So it's 8 miles from the North Shore, it's 16 from the South Shore. Hopefully that clears it up. If not, please text in on the message board. Okay. So the next big hazard that we have is as we get to Madisonville, there is a shoal that you'll be coming in from the lake, you'll be looking north, and you can clearly see this beautiful wide river. This little area, it doesn't move, okay. If you try to cut through here, you will run aground, guaranteed. Fishing boats have run aground in there. It's a shoal. When I first moved here 30 years ago, you could see grass moving around in there. There were times at low tide where you may have been able to see sand. I'd say some of the people in this that are in here that have been living here for a while probably remember that as a sandbar.
It's full of stumps too.
Lots of stumps, lots of stuff. Okay? So that kind of leads us into the next topic, okay? That's this main channel. You're going to want to get red right return. Anybody ever heard that? So you got red and green markers on any channel going into any harbor, can I say anywhere in the United States? If there are markers, they're going to be using red and green. Okay? So we always, I've said it 1,000 times, I know. Red right return. Red is always on my right side as I'm coming in. If the red's over here, I'm looking for trouble. Okay? So just keep in mind, red right return, and you should be safe. The other thing to keep in mind is your depths. Most of our boats for cruising are going to be set up with depth finders, okay? Know what your depth finder is based on. Mine is set to be, what I'm seeing is from the bottom of the keel. Well, I have seen it to go 0. And it doesn't register minuses, but I was dragging through silt. So I believe it. It's not a place that I like to see 2 or 3 feet at a minimum. And that's depth, below my keel. Most boats are set up at water level, so you better know what your keel depth. Mine's 5'3". Mass is at 45. I have to know that when I'm doing my trip planning. So as you're making the approach, we're going to talk about range markers in just a bit. But there's a, as you make this, you're coming in, making sure the red markers stay on your right. And if you keep going straight ahead, you're going to run into the lighthouse. Well, you won't get to that because there's this big structure that's in front of that we're going to talk about. Then you're going to need to take a hard right. And again, you're going to see red markers that are showing the south side of that shoal. So you're going to be rounding out to make sure that the red stays on your right.
Do they have green marks also?
No.
No green. That's the beach.
There's trash. There's a tugboat that is sinking. It has lost a lot of the hull has rotted out, and it's much lower now. Don't run into that.
So how,
Good idea.
how wide is the channel then?
How wide is that?
Yeah.
It's probably 20. You've got plenty of room to make that pass. It's got plenty of depth. Watch your depth and stay close to the red markers.
Okay.
No?
No, I said it's about 10 feet away.
10 feet from the red to the bulkhead or to the safe zone?
It's kind of back shoulder a little bit on the reds.
I've been there a lot, and you gotta stay about 10 feet away.
Okay.
Give it 15 feet from the red, you got plenty of room.
So for those who are online, what they're stating is if you get too close to the red, the shoal has filled in. Because realizing that that's a river, and that silt is going to start filling in. So try and get yourself centered on that channel. The beach side is pretty obvious.
It might get a little scary when you make the right turn there. It gets real shallow, right, when you make the turn.
Okay?
It's around 6 feet.
So this area right in here,
6 feet? Sometimes, yeah.
it,
You make.
All right, Albert, you gotta go in first then.
You dig through it.
no problem, I'm at 5'3", I can make it. I'm going through there. Yeah, Jared will be out in front of us anyway.
He ought to stick around.
Probably stop.
So the river's dredged to 10 foot. How deep's the channel coming in?
So it's not real clear on the charts,
Yeah.
and we've all agreed that charts are references.
Right.
I'll tell you a little quick story on Skipper and I. We were sailing back from Pensacola race on the Ondine. Ondine has a 6.5,
5-3.
5'3", just like mine. And we said, well, you know, I know a really nice anchorage. Now we're coming from the east, and we're going into Horn Island. I wish I could pull up the chart real quick. I'm not going to try and add any depth to this. But the point is we rounded the east corner, looking at the charts, oh yeah, we're fine. I'm going down below, getting some more stuff for my camera. I want to take pictures of all this. And we were sailing we were making pretty good headway, and I got thrown to the forward companion area. I jumped up, and if you've ever sailed with Skipper, you know that he's a very quiet, laid back. When things get exciting though, he wasn't hollering at me, but he was giving very clear instructions of what I needed to do. And we stood the boat up, heeled it back over, fired up the engine, and we made a hard U-turn under sail and motor power, and we got off that shoal. To say the least, we had a little luck on our side for that day. So the point is, read the charts, read the waves, read your depth, and pay attention, because it's your boat. We do need to be careful out there. Safety first. So, range markers. Again, if you look at Coast Guard settings, this illustration is a perfect example of how range markers are intended to work. You'll have two range markers that are set up to where you have to get them lined up. If they're like this, you're not in the middle of the channel. You're not in the middle of the channel. If the stripes are lined up, they should look like they're like this. So, what are they showing us? So on those two illustrations, those three illustrations, you can, I'm going to switch sides so I can point a little better. So in a perfect lane, I'm not going to run over these markers, by the way. It's just guiding me till I get to the next mark or to a change in course. So the two markers are lined up. This is what it would look like. The rear marker is always taller. It has to be. The front one being taller, you're not going to see the back one, right? Yeah. So it's kind of intuitively obvious, but that helps you to visualize where those markers are in space. If they're lined up, the stripes will line up, and you're heading here. At this point, I would assume that you're going to see a red marker on this next shoal. But the point is, it's just to get you centered on that primary channel. If the markers look like this, you are probably going to be running over a shoal as you get in tighter. If they look like this, you're going to be dropping here. And in this case, these two shoals, is what they're trying to protect you from running aground on. So if you've got range markers, and that's universal, the colors are not universal. Most are going to be a red stripe, but we're going to see in just a minute, it's slightly different in a lot of cases, okay? So when we're approaching the lighthouse or going into the Tchefuncte River, the lighthouse is the back marker. There's a range marker, that's what this is, that is intended to be in front of it. So right now, it's a great picture to say I'm going to run aground. Right? So I need to be turning the boat to where it'd be coming in with this approach. Okay? And again, I have seen these in the when you're going through the Wrigley's. Perfect example. You're going through the railroad bridge, and there's a range marker out there to make sure that you see where the center of the bridge is as you're making that approach through there. So this again is universal. The lighthouse, it's two different ranges. The lighthouse is 49 feet, and there's a signal on there that is every 6 seconds, on off. It goes on for 6 seconds, it's off for 6 seconds. The front range does have a light on it, and it's just flashing. It's a white flashing light. So if you're coming in at night, you want to see those beacons, and you will see them again. You can line up the lights. They're still on, and on your chart you'll be able to see those sequences. So again, it's back into physical charts on your boat. Not, you know, if you've got it on your phone, the thing we don't like about our phones, or Navtronics or any other electronics, it doesn't tell you what that note means. If you're not familiar with it, you get on a paper chart, it'll reference a note number. You got to go find that note that's on your chart. It's a lot easier to pick up that piece of paper and find it. Any questions on range markers? Do you have any online?
No.
That means that I did it perfect. That's great. Okay. So, docking. There's two primary areas that we will be considering for docking. First off, docking in Madisonville is a first come, first served. There's no saving spots. You can't go and pre-register. You can't have somebody hanging their feet over the side till the boat gets there. We're going to try.
Yeah, we're gonna try.
But we could politely ask somebody to move. Could you move like 300 feet that way to allow room for all of us?
We're working on a couple of ringers. We'll see what happens.
So when you get there, the town hall number is listed. They're not going to be there. So we still have some research to do with this because is there an envelope or anything like that?
Yes.
Has anybody?
Dave has docked there before, and the Madisonville police will come and knock on your boat and tell you.
So the knock, but is there a place to pay in advance?
They'll leave you a ticket.
Yeah.
And then that's all you have to do is mail the money in, if you want to do it that way.
Well, I've already
It's
talked
not
to
a
them.
ticket like you get arrested or anything, it's just a reminder that you owe them $10.
Yeah, what we're gonna do with that, I've already talked to the town hall people, is the Corinthians are gonna pay the $10 for each boat that's going in. We're gonna ask you for $15 per person to cover the food, that, and the other things. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a list of all the boats. I'm going to write one check from the Corinthians, list all the boats and the owners, and put that in the special drop-off box in the parking lot at the town hall. and then we should all be good.
All right, so let me just summarize for those online. We had a lot of questions as to, well, how do you do that? Well, one, you could just go ahead and dock. They'll put a ticket on your boat. You can just send the money in after. It's not really a ticket, it's just, hey, you owe us $10. What we're gonna do instead, though, we're gonna have a list of boats that will be going and docking in. The Corinthians are gonna write a single check for all the boats with the list of all their names, and we'll take care of that. So then, we're gonna talk about the Madisonville crew, how we're paying for all this, and we've got food and all that we're gonna be trying to cover as well. So it is $10 a boat, and we're gonna just divide it up. The water depth is listed on the charts and at their town hall on their website as 6 feet. I lost a pair of glasses along that bulkhead for one of the wooden boat festivals, and I know that I dove and did not find my glasses, and I know I went at least 10 feet. Now, that was at that spot, right? So one of the things you do need to, you already know where I'm going to go with this, it's your responsibility, right? Pay attention to your soundings as you're coming up. We are going to be looking at potential rafting together, which would allow boats to be further out if there is a depth issue. So that'll be another point of discussion. So our goal is to stay on the south side of the bridge. So Highway 22, in the event that you do need to hail that bridge, they do it by phone number. So you may want to jot down this number, 985-845-8363. If you need to get on that north side, then you'll need to hail them for a pass. I docked on the north side of the bridge for a little over a year, and I decided the bridge wasn't worth it. It's a real pain. Yes, sir.
So, starting sometime next month, maybe not before y'all get there, the Coast Guard has sent out a notice saying that they're gonna open on the hour on demand. So it's not an automatic hail, you know,
Right.
it'll be, if there's boats waiting, they'll open. If there's no boats, they're not opening.
Right.
And they don't open between 4 and 6 in the evening during the week,
And when do we like to go sailing? That's, 5, 6 o'clock during rush hour. So that's why I'm back on this side. Plus, there's no races over there.
yeah.
So the point that they were just talking about, for those of you online, is that the bridge is changing how they're doing it. They're only going to open on the hour. Is that what you're saying?
Only on the
They're
hour.
only going to be opening on the hour if somebody is requesting a pass. It used to be every half hour. Sometimes it was 15 minutes.
Between 6 in the morning and 6 in the evening.
They've got a real traffic snarl right there.
Now,
Car traffic.
you said that if you need to go north of the bridge, are we gonna be docking on both sides, or are we trying to all stay on the south side of the bridge?
Our preference is to stay on the south side, because that's where we're gonna be setting up tents and where we're gonna be serving the food. But it's not that big a walk if some people prefer to be on the north side. But there really should be plenty of space on that south side.
Power up north and south?
Sorry?
They have power north and south?
No.
I would not, I'm seeing yeses, I'm seeing no's.
I scouted it. There's like one spot.
Okay, so again, for this type of a cruise, my recommendation is assume you don't have power. If you happen to look out and say, oh, look, I can just power up. I know some people are really worried about air conditioners, okay? It's the first week of April. It really should be comfortable. And, you know,
But they do have power on the south side.
I think there's two hookups there.
There's more than that.
So the point is, assume you don't, bring your power cord, bring all of your attachments, and if you luck out, great.
Try to be self-contained.
Try to be self-contained. And if you're using a generator, be polite to the people around you. Separate subject. Okay. So what we want to talk about now, in the event that we have to raft up, if we need to dock alongside of somebody, somebody's going to get there. Obviously, the people get there first. They're going to be docking correctly. We learned how to do that correctly during the last seminar. But it's worth mentioning a few extra steps when we're rafting up to somebody else. First point, make sure you ask permission. Make sure they're aware that you're coming up.
You don't just yell, coming in hot. No?
Coming in hot is not really what I want to hear. Plan your approach. Think about what you're about to do and consider where your spreaders are going to be located in relation to the boat that you're coming up to. In the event that you get any rocking at all, your spreaders should be well inside of your rails. However, as people walk on boats and things get to moving around a little bit, just make sure that you don't have your spreaders lined up in your final tie down.
I have a question. That bulkhead, do they have pilings on the outside or is it just a smooth bulkhead? You know? Does anybody
Pilings on the outside.
on the outside? The gray whaling boards if you got them.
Excellent point. So one of the questions was, where are the pilings in relation? Is it a bulkhead that's flat or is it pilings that are sticking out? We believe that they are all sticking out. So just consider how you're going to do your proper fending. You have, what is that called again?
Whaling board?
Railing?
Whaling.
Whaling. Okay, that's another term I'm going to have to, I know what it looks like. I don't have one. But just consider your bumpers, consider your tie-offs. So the other thing to consider is leaving times. And unfortunately we've done this on races, people go charging in, we're coming in at different times, everybody rafts up, we're all tied up. Some people stay up all night, other people want to leave at the crack of dawn and then they look at their boat and it's sandwiched in with a lot of other boats. So as you're coming in, you do need to consider your leaving time in relation to others. There are ways to tie up a boat knowing that the middle boat needs to come out as an example. So it's all about planning ahead, making sure your neighbors know what your intentions are, and plan.
We have a question from the chat. Is it preferred or necessary for boats to point in the same direction as shown on the graphic?
Excellent question. No, it doesn't matter for calm waters. So we're going into an area that is not going to have a lot of rocky seas. If we were going to be trying to tie up, raft up in this harbor today where there's a lot of wave action in there, then pointing the boat with anybody's stern looking at waves is not going to be pleasant for anybody who's connected. So if you have a strong tide, actually the tide you could go either way, but if you've got strong winds and wave movement, you want to make sure that your bows are all pointing into the waves. So just keep that in mind. Again, it's back to plan your approach, see what the other person's doing, but you can go bow, then stern, then bow, stern. And I don't think there's a limit on how far out you want to go, but I'd say 3 is plenty.
Now, on one of your things that you said when you cross boats, you're crossing in front of the mast. If people are pointing different directions, that makes it hard.
Then you still go toward the mast,
Yep.
and you might step left or right. So, and we're going to cover that next. So, one of the other things that I was reading and really didn't think too much about it, tie your bumpers low on the boat to make sure that they can't pop out. Now, I've seen some of our fenders are pretty beefy. So if you hang it on your rail and you got a good overlap to your tow rails, that's the biggest thing, is that's your widest spot. So just plan for what you're going to be using it for. So this is a little bit of a review from last week. I'm going to switch sides again. So the thing that I liked about this illustration, and I can't tell you where I stole it from, that's the beauty of the internet. You find a good illustration, you pop it on there. Notice that each one of the boats have a different color line sequence. You've got off your stern, you got your breast line. You got 2 spring lines that are going to the center of the boat. One going behind, one going forward, and then you have another breast line. So that's a typical tie down, and I'm good. 4 lines to the dock, I'm good. If I go and I tie the next boat in, I'm going to do the same thing. I want to get my 2 breast lines in to the next boat. Then I'm going to put 2 spring lines. I'm secured to the boat now. I can easily move from boat to boat, but it's best to go ahead and have an independent tie all the way back to the bulkhead on the stern and on the bow. That way you're not depending on this guy having not tied things in correctly, and all of a sudden people were wobbling out or drifting out. So same thing as you go further out. You got your 2 breast lines, you've got your 2 spring lines, and then you've got your long lines that are going all the way in and tying off to the bulkhead. This is not the way I've done it, but when I saw this, it really makes a lot of sense. So what I did, I got on board my boat this week, and I started looking through all my lines. I said, okay, well, I know that I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got to have 6 lines. I'm going to think of how, and I can use combinations of different ropes to do different things, but I'm going to think about it. It's all about planning before you get there. You get out there and you just start throwing ropes and who's tying off to what side and all of this. It's your boat. You better know how you tie it off. And you're, again, asking permission. Go in slow.
We have a question from the chat. Let's see. My boat and many others do not have a cleat amidship. Please address different ways or alternate ways if they don't have the...
Sure. So they've got to have some type of a block. Might be used for their sails that they could tie off on. It could be a stanchion, and you tie off close to the base of the boat.
Not very strong.
Well, the intention, we're not trying, we're holding. It's intended as a spring line just to keep the boat from rocking back and forth.
Maybe a shroud would be better.
Your other option, take your spring line. This spring line could just as easily come all the way from the stern and go forward. This spring line could go ahead and come all the way to the bow. The intention is just to make sure that you're holding yourself in and you're keeping it from wanting to walk. Are there other ways to do it? Absolutely. Think through it and just realize you got a lot of different moving parts there. Okay, this is another great point. Clear your deck. Part of what we're going to be talking about is people walking across your deck. If you've just got ropes, just kidding, David. If you've got lines that are just laid out on deck, if you've got things that are out there, you got cushions, people are walking across, you need to tidy it up. As soon as you get there, just tidy things up, put them away, keep it tidy, because as people are coming across, they're stepping over your safety lines. We don't need any additional tripping hazards. Plus, chances are there may be some walking across at night. There could be adult beverages that have been served, and we don't need any extra movement to things, so just tidy it up a bit. And the other point, as Al was pointing out, I mentioned this as well. As you're approaching a boat and you're going to cross it, think of the cockpit as somebody's living room or their dining room. Don't walk through there. Walk forward to the mast unless you're invited to come through or to sit with them. Hey, you want a beer, a water, or whatever. So, you know, if you're invited to sit in the cockpit or to cross the cockpit, a center cockpit might be the perfect example. You should still be trying to go forward to the mast. So it's just a matter of being polite to the people around us. Any questions on docking together? So docking together is a little bit different than anchoring together. So there is an anchorage area in Madisonville. Seen boats out there. I have no idea what's up there. I've seen sailboats docking in that area. It looks like a wide enough area. You do need to consider multiple things. But let's start with the anchorage area. It's still there's no charge for anchoring out there because you're not getting anything, including a way onto shore. There's no fees. You got to have a dinghy to get ashore. You do have to cross through the bridge. Just consider those things. And really the bigger thing, excuse me. There we go. Oh, too far. There we go. When you place your anchor, just realize you got a potential 360 rotation on your anchor. If you've got steady, prevailing winds, Al and Gigi can attest to this. When we were anchored at Horn Island. Both of our boats were far enough apart, no problem. It's almost guaranteed out there that the winds will start from the southeast, and then they're going to clock around to be coming from the northwest. And that's pretty much all the time. The winds shift at night, middle of the night, and then you kind of panic because your anchor alarm goes off because you've swung out of your radius. So you got to just keep that in mind. So if you're trying to anchor independently with another boat, you need to stay outside of that full radius and consider that for the overlaps. There is a way for you to raft together, but I would say that's all great to raft up together on an anchorage, but I would not do it unattended. If you're going to anchor, if you've got somebody on the anchor, you're just pulling up, kind of hanging out for a couple hours, okay? We got a couple hours to sunset. Everybody goes and pulls out and goes, get on your own anchors. So that's what's recommended. You definitely wouldn't want to have more than one boat holding on any one anchor. So now you're trying to get multiple anchors hanging. everybody rafted together, you got chains and lines are gonna be crossing up. I say, best of luck to you, don't call me when you get tangled. So, I did not spend a lot of time on anchoring. That will probably be a separate discussion that we'll end up with in the near future. So one of our favorite things to talk about is food. So next month's presentation is going to be cooking on board. It's only limited by your own imagination. Some people use their ovens. Gigi was cooking pies and cakes and all kind of fun stuff on her boat. I think they had quiche in the morning,
Bread.
baked bread. So there's a lot of, the great thing about cruising, you got a lot of options. You can cruise to a site like what we're doing here, going to Madisonville. We've got multiple restaurants we could hit. In this case, we've got another yacht club that has volunteered to help us with that. Going to work up a nice menu for us. And then we'll be able to enjoy our meal together. So cooking on board is no big deal. And you'll see next month's topic, there's big variations as to what you can do on board. So the biggest thing that it does is anytime we're out together, we're cruising together, mealtime is always a fun time to share stories. So Pelican Yacht Club is organizing the dinner. Are they still staying with the jambalaya? And we have a separate flyer that we'll be sending out for more information on that.
Yes, so it's gonna be jambalaya, salad, dessert, bread, and we just need to get Roger a head count by like Monday. So over the weekend, if you're thinking about coming, great, just kind of let us know so we can order food.
So it's like, what, 6 o'clock or something?
We're gonna do 7 o'clock as dinner, so if you have people that wanna come over and just join for dinner that don't wanna sail, they're welcome to come join us for dinner. Just let me know number of people. So you can have your friends, your family, or other non-sailing people. I don't know who those people are, but anyway, if your friends.
I could give you a list of that group.
Maurice doesn't have a boat. So.
No. And Roger also suggested you could get a transient slip in Marina Del Rey. If you want to go fancy, Marina Del Rey does have transient slips, if you don't want to.
So a couple follow-ups with that for those of you that are on the call with us. So Pelican is sponsoring this. They're setting up tents. We're encouraging everybody to bring lawn chairs. And we're encouraging everybody to bring your own liquid refreshments. Rather than us taking a poll, if I took a poll in here of what you want to drink, I can guarantee you that we can come up with 12 to 15 different flavors that we'd all be looking for. So everybody just bring your own. You're right by your boat, sit on your boat, sit in your lawn chair, bring your little ice chest. Remember, we've got those small ice chests that everybody's packing anyway. So 7 o'clock is our target time to eat. And what else do we need to say about that part of the plan?
No, it's really just head count, and they'll provide soft drinks and water, but,
So what we're requesting is anybody who's eating with us, it's $15 a head. The $15 a head will cover the meal, and we'll also share in the expense of all of our docking. So we just simplified it as $15 a head. It's for your meal.
Anything extra except jambalaya? Any other choice?
You can talk to our food services coordinator for any other potential options after the meeting.
I got a quick question. I'm
Sure.
just curious, why is Pelican involved? I'm just curious why they're doing this.
Yeah, the question was, why Pelican? What does Pelican have to do with this cruise? And the Corinthians this year, we're really making a big effort to start collaborating with the yacht clubs and other sailing organizations, really in an effort to just get more people on the water. And I used to belong to Pelican Yacht Club 25 years ago. And I know Roger Seals, the ex-Commodore. I raced against him, and when I talked to him, he started sending people over to go racing with us, and he's just a nice guy. They actually they used to be on False River, they're now have a spot in Madisonville.
Oh,
and,
see, I did not know that, okay.
Yeah.
That's why we're explaining it.
That's new, and, yeah, he kindly offered to, try to get this going, and we jumped at it and said, yeah, let's get together and collaborate even more.
Makes total
Where
sense.
is it? I don't even know where it is, I've never heard of it.
They're in Marine Ranch.
Yeah, they're in Marina.
Now they are. They used to be at False River. Many years ago, they had a nice little yacht club on False River, and now they're have a spot on False River, and they have a location in Madisonville.
Right. So the biggest thing with them is that group has started showing up for races, whether it's Pontchartrain Yacht Club races or Corinthian Sailing Group. We're doing an excellent job of combining a lot of our races, again, with the same goal. We just want to get more people out there sailing with us, whether it's a cruise or a race. So just a quick summary for any trip, but specific to this one, check your boat safety gear, bring the proper personal gear, sign up as for crew members. We're asking everybody to just pitch in the 15 if you're going to eat, whether you're driving over to meet us or sailing, spending the night with us, whatever you choose to do, $15 a head. That covers our docking fees and meals. Recommended departure time, we're going to meet at M1 at 10 o'clock. Be there or not. You know what our goals are. We're all moving in the same direction. Full duration of the trip is estimated at 4 to 5. If you're on the South Shore, you need to add another 2 hours to that, so you're at the 6 to 7 hour tour. We could get the little jingle from Gilligan's Island, 3-hour tour.
Question, on Sunday, we're doing a group departure time?
Yeah, we have not decided that yet because my gut feel is that people will probably want to leave a little earlier. It hasn't really been discussed. So we may move that time up a bit. But we don't have to decide tonight.
I have a question. So are we gonna try to sail all the way into Madisonville, or are we dropping sails once we hit the channel?
I'll just remind you, this is an individual cruise. Risky business. Anybody want to guess what risky business we'll be attempting to do?
You'll sail all the way to the
I will try and bring it right up to the bridge, round it out, and bulk without my engine.
I'll be dropping my sails at the outer marker.
And hopefully Randy will keep his flag off of the rail so they don't have to knock it off again.
He admits it.
So we'll all be monitoring Channel 68. You need to hail the bridge either by phone or on Channel 16. Again, as a reminder, most bridges hail 13 on the VHF. Most bridges hail 13. The charts indicate, is that correct? Do the charts indicate what they're, no, I stand correct. The charts don't indicate it, so you need to be doing research in advance. Yes, Gigi.
So let's say you're late, or you're coming from the South Shore and it took you longer to get there. How is the bridge about opening? Are they gonna open on the hour, on the half hour?
Again,
I can't imagine they're gonna open every time you have.
they're not gonna have that many boats passing. They're gonna get a group of us together and they're gonna allow a pass. On a weekend, it's not that big a deal for them to open and close. Especially if you're giving 3 hours notice.
Yeah.
I'm coming up, I'm hailing you at 30 minutes. They're gonna tell you, call me back when you get to, and they're gonna tell you, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, when you're, start circling and I'll decide when you can come through. Yes.
On that, because if you're, I got a group coming from over here, and you have a group coming from the South Shore, if they're all doing it, they're going to know that they have a boat that's supposed to be there, a group at noon. The South Shore maybe get there at 12:31. He's not gonna open up for the 12:30, he may open for the big group, but he's not gonna open for the 12:31, he's gonna wait for the one to catch up to 12:30. I mean, that's,
Yeah, you'll be sitting there for a while.
that's just what they do, so.
And unfortunately,
That's when happy hour.
we are at their mercy, right? It's their call as to when we're coming through. Depending on the seas, it may get uncomfortable. You may want to sit, if he tells you, look, I'm gonna wait, I see another boat approaching, you're gonna have to wait for 20 minutes. You might want to just sail away for a bit and come back.
Like, it's important what he said, you need to set a time when you're at the bridge, because if they're coming from the South Shore, and it's 45 minutes, they're gonna be 45 minutes, he's gonna hold the bridge up 45 minutes. If he's in that group,
Yeah.
he may hold the bridge up.
Do the 3-hour call.
Bro, I'm telling you what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
But they may do, I've done it a lot of times.
Sure.
If
I've
they're
had
in the group,
to, I've had to wait too.
And they're gonna hold, it's important that everybody try to get, if it's 1 o'clock, or try to get there at 1.
Yeah, there's no way to, different classes of boats are gonna be moving faster. Figure your own times. We've given estimates to it. They'll know that they've got a dozen boats coming through in that 2-hour, 3-hour block, whatever's been estimated. They're gonna deal with it. They're gonna give us instructions as to when they're gonna allow us to come through. And then finally, make sure that you keep in mind that Tchefuncte River approach, follow your wave markers. Remember the range markers. Watch the red markers as you're coming in, keep them on your right. And then keep in mind proper docking, plan ahead. Okay, so one of my favorite things is let's just go cruising. There's just a few of us that have had a chance to enjoy the islands, man. You know, they're just on the outside of the lake. Cat, Shit, Horn Island are really pretty areas. We took this picture. This is off of Cat Island. This is a dinghy that Skipper picked up from a good friend of ours. Our friend, Steve France, he's about 6'3", and he and I paddled this little thing on board. And, well, you can't really tell, but the oar locks really weren't that good, so one of us had to lean forward and try and hold the oars in place. And as we were leaving the boat, Skipper said, "You didn't have much freeboard on the back end of that thing." So it's another thing to consider when you're cruising is how are you going to get on shore if you're going to go on shore. So kayaks are great, but you got to have place on deck for those as well. But these little trips were just a lot of fun. So we definitely want to encourage more people to get out there and do it. Get these boats out of the slips and shake the cobwebs and the mud daubers off your sails, and let's go. Any questions?
If we pass around the sign-in sheet,
So there's going to be there's 2 different sign-up sheets. One is if you attended tonight. If you attended on Zoom, make sure that you send information through to online. If you have any other questions, if you have any other recommendations for topics, if you are interested in volunteering to give a talk, we'd welcome that as well. The biggest thing is have fun, and hopefully y'all got something out. You got one more question?
Well, I just had an offer. You know, I do vessel safety checks and all, so if you want to get your equipment checked out, I'll come by and cut the checklist.
Yeah, I know I need some flares.
Yeah. Usually what people are, they have old ones, you know, but now they have the lights that you could buy that take the place of a flare and they don't expire. But I'll keep the flares anyhow.
Orion, yeah, get Orion and it's for life.
That's what you got, of course.
Hey, I'm listening to God.
Okay, I've done his boat a few times.
The power star. Very good, this is a man.
All right, well, thank y'all very much, appreciate it.
Okay.